McLaren has proven to be unbeatable, dominating both leaderboards single-handedly. Now, it appears to be an easy duel unless Verstappen can make a comeback. Welcome to the 10th round of the Formula One World Championship, the Canadian Grand Prix. After the nerf to the flexible wings, Formula One continues on its course with a clear leader. And this time, it's time to compete on a circuit as legendary as the driver it is named after. The Gilles Villeneuve circuit appears on the island of Notre Dame in Montreal. In 2025, a track with tight walls will be featured, with McLaren leading and its drivers favored to win the championships, though many questions remain unanswered. Max Verstappen has fallen after the events in Spain, and the situation doesn't look very favorable for him. So Red Bull needs to find a way to stop the guys from walking, or is that title for Verstappen becoming more and more impossible? An upcoming circuit is designed for gutsy drivers. Where if Verstappen and Red Bull don't start doing things right, will it be time to say goodbye to the crown? Let's begin the preview of the 2025 Canadian Grand Prix of Formula One. It's been 2 weeks since the events of the nerfing of the wings happened. Flexible ones which seem to have achieved the opposite of what many wanted and were expecting. Since McLaren is increasingly leading both tables, being about to reach the halfway point of the season. So time is running out for someone else to stop them and for the pressure between Piastri and Norris to start increasing little by little in the fight. Now it's time for Canada and its stunning remarkable circuit to make their mark on the calendar. One of those tracks where you have to get close to the walls for truly amazing races and that sometimes produces completely unexpected winners. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to start this preview, getting to know the venue that will bring this new round of the Formula One World Championship to life. Montreal, Canada. Its track is the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, located in the middle of the St. Lawrence River on Notre Dame Island, built in 1978. 4.3 kilometers of track, 70 laps, 14 turns. 3 drag reduction system activation zones, but only 2 potential areas to attempt overtaking maneuvers. Characterized as a semi-street circuit, with walls close to the track and extremely fast. The first sector, the most technical of the 3, features some of the circuit's most challenging corners. The first and second corners are slow turns and are then followed by short straights, where turns 3 and 4 form a chicane whose exit requires traction. And knowing how to brush the wall without overdoing it, it's a part of the track that really prioritizes corner exits and acceleration. In a complex sector that is only the beginning of this 4-kilometer journey. The speed increases for the second sector, which in short consists of 2 chicanes and 2 straights. The first one is located between turn 7 and 8 and is the first drag reduction system activation zone on this track. However, the straight is not very long and is mostly used to stay close to rivals in order to attempt overtakes at another point on the circuit. But since it has short straights and heavy braking zones with chicanes, once again, aspects like traction and acceleration stand out. To know how to navigate these corners and thus prepare for the final dance that this Canadian circuit has. The third sector, starting with the hairpin, is the fastest on this track. Of turn 10, which will once again test the brakes and the traction on the way out. It's very important for approaching the back straight, the longest on this circuit, and the second drag reduction system activation point. It is activated just before turn 12 and extends along this entire straight until the braking zone for turn 13. Providing one of the best overtaking opportunities on this track, but the drivers will have to face the wall of champions at the end. The final chicane of this circuit, where the curbs are very high and the wall at the exit is so close that even the slightest mistake when accelerating can end anyone's race. Coming out of this corner is the final drag reduction system activation point on the track. After exiting the chicane, the device is activated for the 3rd time, extending to the braking zone for turn 1. That's why this sector is key for overtaking and by far the fastest of the 3. Montreal is a circuit loved by drivers and fans alike. It's a track where you brush the walls, mistakes are punished, and you can truly battle with your rivals. Since it's a fast track that offers overtaking opportunities, it's an unusual combination for this type of circuit. And in summary, in the first sector, the most important element is traction. In the second sector, traction and acceleration of the car shine again. And in the third sector, it's all about brakes and top speed. To tackle the slow corners and the long straights. Additionally, in this circuit, the safety car is a common occurrence and its deployment during a race is highly probable. Since the introduction of this device in 1994, the safety car has neutralized a race up to 35 times. And since it's such a fast circuit, with the walls so close, accidents are extremely common. And statistically, the safety car has up to a 67% chance of appearing for the 2025 edition of Formula One. The track has many potentially dangerous areas, but the chicane at the Wall of Champions stands out as the most historically treacherous. That's because of the high curbs at the entry and exit of the corner and how close you have to get to the wall on the way out. It's a section where many drivers have hit the wall throughout history, so statistically, it's considered the most dangerous point on the track. And an accident here has a very high chance of bringing out a full safety car or even a red flag. On this circuit, traction and brakes are extremely punished on every lap, since it's a track with heavy braking and slow corners along with long straights. And since it's a circuit with these characteristics, the cars are usually set up with low downforce setups to handle the straights, since there are very few high-speed corners. Unlike other street circuits, overtaking is possible at the Gilles Villeneuve, although challenging. And it has two key points during the race to attempt any overtaking. The best overtaking spot is the long back straight if the driver gets better traction exiting the hairpin. With drag reduction system and proper slipstream on the straight, you can overtake before the braking zone, or by being aggressive, trying to take the inside line at the entrance to the Wall of Champions. It requires some courage and above all being precise. But at this point on the circuit, there's a particular feature. This zone and the next one are connected by a single drag reduction system detection zone. So if you overtake at this point, they won't counterattack you with this device. On the next straight, and if you can't overtake in this section, the next zone becomes a new and good opportunity. Where in terms of characteristics to pass rivals, it's necessary to follow the previous procedure. Get a better exit from the chicane at the Wall of Champions than your rival. Slipstream down the straight and in many cases, know how to plant the car in turn 1. So, on a scale from 1 to 5, the difficulty of overtaking on this track is a 3. It's difficult, but believe me, it's not impossible, and in previous years this track has given us some truly amazing races. In the Canadian pit lane, the speed limit is 80 km/h, allowing for quick transit. Its entry cuts through the last corners, and its exit completely bypasses turn 1, making it an extremely fast pit lane, compared to others where the time loss is much less. And a pit stop, including a tire change, can be completed in about 23 or 24 seconds, but the time lost in the pit lane is usually around 18 seconds. And tire wear on this circuit is extremely low. The asphalt isn't very abrasive and you don't struggle with lateral loads since there aren't many fast corners. But of course, the stress the tire is subjected to is at a medium level because of the traction that's needed. Still, the track causes minimal degradation under normal conditions. Drivers should be able to finish the race with one pit stop. The short pit lane and safety cars increase the likelihood of multiple pit stops. In fact, teams often make 2 or even 3 pit stops during the race. For this edition, Pirelli will provide the C4, C5 and C6 compounds their softest range. Canada is one of those circuits that really gets your heart racing, extremely fast and extremely challenging with the intrinsic characteristics of a street circuit. This track encourages you to test and approach your limits. The invitation holds the trap and danger of excess, leading drivers to meet a wall. So if you combine that speed with these rules of the game, Canada can deliver a completely chaotic race under the right conditions. Summer vacation is coming, which for many means taking trips with family or as a couple, and often means buying flights, renting cars and planning accommodations. And the typical headaches that come with any trip. But believe me, the biggest headache is seeing the total cost of the trip, which, in many cases, is not an easy thing to handle. But what would you say if I told you there's a way to save a bit when planning a trip? This is with a tool that helps you take advantage of many deals, called a VPN, and that tool is provided by our friends at Surfshark. It's common for flights, rentals, or hotel searches on some online sites to vary prices based on your search history or profile. Some countries have different prices than the ones shown in your geographic area. with Surfshark and its feature to change your internet protocol to place you anywhere in the world. You can hunt for these different deals, from flights to online stores, and look for the best prices available for your trip, and save yourself some money that way. Which in fact also works for some online shopping stores. Since you have the VPN, you can change your internet protocol and virtually place yourself anywhere in the world. It helps you break any regional block that might exist in the different destinations you can visit around the world. And with that, you can enjoy unlimited browsing if you want to watch your series, movies, or questionable furry websites. It also protects you from any threat to your personal information that might be lurking on the internet, especially when you browse on public networks and download files. That's just one of the many features a VPN has. But look, so you can experience all these benefits yourself. If you go to search.com/Skyline and use my code Skyline, you'll get up to 4 extra months when you sign up for the service at no additional cost. Try it on an unlimited number of devices, and if you don't like it or you're not convinced, you have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So I recommend you don't miss the opportunity and give Surfshark's VPNs a good try with the help of our friends at Surfshark. Despite the flexible wing issue, McLaren's pursuit of their first double title since the season remains unchanged. In 1998, they arrived in Canada aiming to extend their lead over Red Bull and Verstappen. They are wounded and in desperate need of a great result if they don't want to say goodbye to their title chances. So, with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to analyze each team and driver one by one for this Grand Prix at the Canadian circuit. The current World Constructors Champions still refuse to give in, and despite the new regulations on flexible wings, not only do they remain just as dominant, but it even seems like they're stronger under these new rules against flexible wings. With a single blow and a 1-2 finish, they've dashed the hopes of those wishing to see them fall since the last Grand Prix. And what about Verstappen, now far behind in the battle for the Drivers' Championship? With Elioscar Piastri trailing by 49 points, the duel appears to be a contest solely between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri for the time being. If McLaren keeps performing strongly in upcoming races, when not only have they not been affected by the regulations, but also, despite rumors from the press, they haven't brought any upgrade package up to this point. Even the front wing is the same as it was at the start of the season. And as they warned at the beginning of the year, they only needed a small adjustment to comply with this new regulation. And even so, without changing the front wing and the wing regulations, they destroyed their competition again, where many did have to spend on developing a new front wing that flexed less, so their advantage is even stronger. Waiting to see if they continue bringing only minor updates or if they bring a major upgrade package for Silverstone. On the other hand, the circuits that require traction are those where McLaren is extremely strong. And in this circuit, it's a vital aspect when it comes to setups. So once again, they stand out as the top favorites this weekend. Now we must observe how the internal battle within McLaren unfolds from these races onward. Seeing that little by little we're getting closer to the end of the season, and the fight for the title is only going to get tougher from now on. Honestly, seeing Ferrari in second place in the constructors' standings is as out of place as a polar bear in Arlington, Texas. But for the first time this year, they jumped from 4th place up to 2nd thanks to the double haul in Spain, and because Red Bull self-destructed and Mercedes lost a driver to a reliability failure. So the general consensus among some experts is that they've been very lucky to capture that spot in the last race in Barcelona. But there's a possibility of keeping it, and it's known that Ferrari, in order to maintain their momentum and improve for the second half of the season, is working on a new suspension for their car to strengthen their pace. Although they still believe that McLaren is too far ahead to be caught in this 2025. Ferrari is anticipated to perform in Canada similarly to what's been observed thus far. It may seem difficult to fight for the podium under normal conditions, but at least they seem to have the pace again to be ahead of the Mercedes people, and we'll have to see if this track suits Red Bull well to see if this team's opportunities open up again in this competition. The Germans have multiple concerns at this point in the season. One of them is the constant reliability issues they've suffered in the past, a triple header of races that has cost them valuable points. Antonelli experienced engine failures in Imola and Barcelona. Russell faced a similar issue in Monaco qualifying, ruining his race. And Alonso, powered by Mercedes in his Aston Martin, had to retire in Monaco due to a failure in his power unit. Additionally, their suspension held up, but they still struggle on high-temperature circuits. Barcelona wasn't as disastrous as Imola and Monaco. The updated rear suspension is set to return for Montreal, which Mercedes hopes will unlock the untapped potential from previous rounds. And high temperatures are not expected at this circuit, so Mercedes could perform well at the Canadian circuit. With that, aim for an excellent outcome, which they need to turn around the last disastrous races they've suffered since the start of the European Tour. Red Bull had the chance to take second place in the constructors' standings in Barcelona, and what they ended up with was dropping to fourth place due to three particular situations. First, Yuki Tsunoda. He follows the trend of everyone who came before him, and his points tally is practically minimal, by having the same adaptation problems with the car that practically all his predecessors have had. Second, Red Bull messed up strategically when a safety car destroyed their chances to fight, just when it seemed that the three-stop strategy was working, and then Verstappen was penalized with a 10-second penalty for intentionally colliding with Russell, causing him to drop to 10th place. Red Bull has conceded that the Constructors' Championship is now out of reach, but they hope that Verstappen can still fight for the driver's title, although it's going to be very difficult. However, they will face a significant disadvantage in this competition throughout the month of June. Verstappen will have to race without getting penalized because he has 11 super license points with the 3 he got in Spain. So if he has any collision that deserves a penalty and they punish him with just 1 point, he'll accumulate 12 and will go home banned for 1 race. So in Canada and Austria, he'll have to be very careful, because it's right after this race that Verstappen will have some points from last year removed. Now, just so you see that what we put in the title isn't clickbait, let's answer the question: is Verstappen already out of the title race? No, we're not even halfway through the season, and while his points lead is significant, it's not decisive. The thing is, obviously it's going to be a very complicated mission since they don't have the best car, and only on some circuits do they seem to be able to fight with McLaren. And that's no guarantee that they can beat them at the end of the year. Verstappen needs Red Bull to find a way to match McLaren's performance in order to stay in the fight so he can start his attack and come back for the title. But in a year where teams will have to focus on 2026 with the new technical regulations coming, they won't have many options to keep updating the car. If they jeopardize the 2026 season, you can't count them out of the fight, especially a driver like Verstappen. But definitely it's going to be extremely complicated with the points difference that exists right now. We must acknowledge our mistake from the previous preview, where we incorrectly stated that the Barcelona circuit favored Williams, when in fact the opposite is true. And they faced a complicated and chaotic race for them, in which they left without scoring a single point, thanks to the weakness of their car on that type of circuit, but also due to some accidents that Alex Albon had. The fast and long corners make the car unable to maintain the aerodynamic load. The car excels on circuits with long straights and short corners. So in Canada, they should find a much more car-friendly track which will allow them to recover the points they lost in Spain. We'll see if they manage to do it, but at least things should get better during the next race. The Racing Bulls are on a roll and ready to face Williams to try to snatch that 5th position in the Constructors' Championship from them, highlighting the incredible form Hadjar has shown this season with his great performances. Racing Bulls are optimistic about continuing their strong performance and achieving another excellent result in Canada. So the Racing Bulls might find themselves with another circuit that suits them, allowing them to gradually close the gap to the Williams team. Haas had a weekend to forget in Spain, but according to team personnel, things might not be so easy for the American team at the semi-street circuit in Montreal. The asphalt type and high curbs at the track are not ideal for the Haas car, making the upcoming race challenging, according to the team. In Canada, they will reach 200 Grands Prix in Formula 1 and celebrate with a special livery. We'll see if it helps them achieve a great result. But at first glance, things don't look very favorable for them this weekend. I think few people expected the leap that Sauber made in the last race, with which Hülkenberg managed to finish in 5th place, even beating a Ferrari. But this time, luck helped Hülkenberg secure 5th place. The reality is that he was already working for those points and was already within them. The safety car only helped him capture a much higher position, and everything seems to indicate that the car made a performance leap with the recent updates, which included a new floor, a new engine cover, and the front wing. The team aimed to fix the car's issues with this update, and now Sauber appears to have a more agile and manageable vehicle. In the last race, only Hull had the complete package. Now, Bortoleto is expected to have it too. It's too soon to determine if Sauber can consistently compete for the top positions from this point forward. But the team's morale has gone up and they're confident they can follow the roadmap they set at the beginning of the season and stay out of the last position in the constructors' standings. After numerous unlucky races, Alonso finally scored points at the Casa Parel circuit in Montmeló. But in general, even though the car has improved, it still suffers from a lack of straight-line speed. And on a circuit like Canada, that weakness can be quite significant, so a tough race could be coming if they fail to execute a good qualifying session on Saturday. Meanwhile, Lance Stroll missed the Spanish Grand Prix due to hand surgery. He's expected to be ready for this round, but his situation is still being monitored. So we'll see if Lance is ready to race and can represent his country in his Grand Prix, or if he'll have to be replaced, at least for this round. And things for Alpine are still looking complicated, because even though Gasly scored points in Canada, they're now the worst team of the season. The car is still difficult to handle, and that's been evident with Franco Colapinto, who's having quite a few problems understanding his single-seater. And he suffered from reliability issues in Barcelona, which ruined his qualifying. So, if Alpine wants to get out of that situation at the bottom of the constructors' standings, they need updates that help improve the car's drivability, and for Franco to start gaining confidence with the car, which will help him bring out his best because he's been quite limited by this aspect of the car since he doesn't know it well. Franco himself has admitted that he's dealing with the car's grip issues the most, however, with this structure, already thinking about it. It's going to be very difficult to get out of where they currently are in the standings. But this season has shown us that nothing is impossible, especially with the group in the lower mid-table. As for the weather for this Grand Prix, it looks like rain won't make an appearance on any of the 3 days of the Canadian Grand Prix, with barely a 5% chance of rain on race day, which stays the same for Saturday and Friday. Moreover, temperatures are expected to remain mild, ranging from 20 to 23 degrees. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for a weekend with a dry track and predictable weather for the 10th round of the year at the Gilles Villeneuve circuit. Finally, to wrap up this preview, it's time for the historical facts section of this Grand Prix, so you can take some trivia home with you from this competition. Canada has been in Formula 1 since 1967. The circuit where the Canadian Grand Prix is held has been on the official and point-scoring calendar since then. Since 1978, the Gilles Villeneuve circuit in Montreal has been the venue. Its name comes from the legendary Ferrari driver who died at the 1982 Belgian Grand Prix. And before this circuit was named after that driver, the track was called Circuit-Île de Notre-Dame because the artificial island where the track is located has exactly that name. Canada has hosted its Grand Prix at 3 different venues, in 1967, 1969, and from 1971 to 1978. Formula 1 is set to race at Moss Park in Ontario, Canada. In 1968 and 1970, the competition was held at the Mont-Tremblant circuit, located in Quebec, and since 1978 to the present, it has been the Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, the venue for this competition, although not continuously. Canada has only had 15 drivers in its history within Formula 1. The most successful are Gilles Villeneuve, a 6-time winner, and his son Jacques Villeneuve. He is the most successful Canadian driver in history, having won 11 races and being the only world champion driver from Canada, achieving this milestone in 1997. But the only Canadian driver who has been able to win in front of his home crowd is Gilles Villeneuve, who, in fact, achieved his first victory in 1978 at this Grand Prix, being the only local who has been able to accomplish such a feat to date. Valtteri Bottas holds the fastest lap in the race, set in 2019, with a 1:13.078 time in his Mercedes W10. McLaren is the most successful team in this Grand Prix's history, with 13 victories between 1968 and 2012. The top historical winners in that competition are Max Verstappen and Nelson Piquet, each with 3 victories. But on the top step once again, there is a tie between Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher, who have achieved up to 7 victories each at this circuit, making them by far the top winners. And the Kings of Canada, closing our list of historical facts about the Canadian Grand Prix with this information. And with that, we conclude the preview of the 2025 Canadian Grand Prix of Formula 1. But this is what I ask you, which driver do you think will emerge victorious in the McLaren battle? Do you think Verstappen will be able to come back and turn around the situation in the Drivers' Championship? And tell me, who do you think will be the top 3 drivers on the podium at the end of this Sunday's Canadian Grand Prix? Let me know all your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. Goodbye. Subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you know when I'm uploading a new video, and share this with your friends. I also invite you to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. The links will be in the video description. And I'll see you soon for the recap at the end of the Canadian Grand Prix. Thank you for tuning in and see you later.
Thank you.